Welcome to Z Static. I'm Zach Sprinkle. In today's video, we're going to be shifting gears a little bit. We're going to be talking nutrition. Now, I get asked all the time what you eat, and people are always surprised. And a lot of people, frankly, I think don't even believe me. But what I eat is an animal-based diet. I don't eat any fruits. I don't eat any vegetables. I get zero fiber. I eat nothing but animal muscle meat, organs, animal fats, and actually I have honey as my carbohydrate. And so obviously this raises a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity. So we're going to be getting into that in future videos. However, today I want to give you guys a little bit of background on exactly why I eat this way. I'm going to be going over my entire 22-year experience in the world of nutrition. So this is a video you're not going to want to miss. I think a lot of you out there will be able to relate to my story. So stay tuned till the end. So I started lifting weights when I was 23 years old. So to give you a timeline, this is about 2000. And prior to that, I was a professional BMX rider. I started riding my BMX bike seriously when I was about 10 years old, and that's literally all I did growing up. So already coming into weightlifting, I already had plenty of injuries, primarily a broken back. I had a knee surgery. My wrists and elbows were just a mess. My ankles took quite a beating. So most of my body was pretty beat up when I started weightlifting. However, when I started weightlifting, I noticed that a lot of my injuries started to feel better with just the movement. Going out there, lifting weights, getting stronger really helped me. And it wasn't very long after that. I still wasn't eating very properly. I never really ate that bad, but I never really paid that much attention to what I ate. You know, I always ate a lot of protein. I always ate my vegetables. But of course, I wasn't counting calories. I wasn't really researching anything. However, once I really got into lifting weights and I started putting on a little size, my numbers started going up on the lifts I was doing. My workouts became more intense, and all of a sudden I found myself very quickly, over about a 3-month period, I had caught the flu twice. So now, as you can imagine, I got the flu twice within a 3-month period, so I started paying attention to my nutrition after that. You know, I had always read in my magazines. We got to keep in mind, this was before there was any YouTube, before there was Instagram. The internet was just a kind of a new thing. So if you really wanted to learn anything, if you didn't have a buddy who was really into it, you know, some people you knew that you could learn from, which I didn't, I had to read magazines and books. And so at that point is when I really started paying attention to my nutrition. And I never forget, I sat down and I came up with my own first meal plan. Like to, you know, start meal prepping, because that was what the pro bodybuilders did. So that's what I was going to do. So I sat down, I devised this crazy diet. I think breakfast was barley and yogurt. So it was like grape nuts and yogurt. And then for lunch, it would be boiled chicken breast and 4 pieces of plain wheat bread. And for dinner, I would eat a can of salmon. So it was canned salmon, and it was like, you know, like dog food pretty much. And then I would have instant rice with cinnamon sugar on it and butter. But you know what? I stuck with that diet for probably a good 6 months. I was so into it, like I was going to get big, huge, buff, and it was going to be awesome. And so I'll throw this in because it does kind of pertain a little bit to the story. I worked construction. I started working construction at 21 years old. So about a year before I started lifting weights, as soon as I quit riding my bike professionally, I got into construction out in Colorado, framing houses, and then it transitioned into remodeling houses. But my job was always incredibly physical. So dealing with all the injuries I had from my bike riding and stepping into full-time construction was an uphill battle as far as like staying healthy, keeping energy levels up, the aches and pains, all those things. Even in my 20s, I was really feeling my lifestyle was already starting to catch up to me, which made nutrition even that much more important. As my 20s go on, you know, I'm making progress. I definitely always make very good progress in the gym, constantly reading, learning a bit, refining my diet down. And, you know, I pretty much have a solid like bodybuilder style diet where I'm eating 6-7 times a day, you know, the smaller meals, the lean protein, the clean carbs, the vegetables. I wasn't a big fruit eater, but, you know, it wasn't off limits. And I always gave myself the weekly cheat meal, burger, pizza, something like that, going out for tacos. I always gave myself that flexibility as well. So now at this point, I'm about 28 years old, and I'm kind of living a double life. On one hand, there's Zach, who is this insane animal on the construction site. He's just rock solid, reliable as can be. I'm never missing meals. I'm never missing workouts. I look the part of, a healthy guy. However, I had developed a very nasty alcohol addiction. And it was about, 28, 29, 30 is when that whole alcoholism really just sunk its teeth into me. And it started to become the biggest part of my life, which is being drunk all the time. And I was not a functional drunk. I was a binge drinker, to where I would drink, I would basically sit in my apartment, drink by myself, alone, for anywhere from days to weeks at a time. And then once I would sober up, I would be hitting the gym hard, eating perfectly, almost like out of guilt, for doing all that shit to my body and my life too, because alcoholism destroys everything, not just your body. And so I was on that roller coaster for a very long time, and I'm not going to get deep into the drinking, but was literally the biggest part of my life, and it kind of explains why, that there's like a little 10-year gap there in like my whole search for nutrition. So through most of my 30s, I entered about 30 years old. I was pretty schooled with how to lift properly. I knew my body well. I knew how to eat, but like I said, I was going between these periods of drinking heavily, almost to death, and then building myself back up. So all the way up until I'd say about 39 years old, maybe 40, I was trying to get sober that whole time. So I would go through periods of, 3 months sober, and then I would binge for a couple of months. Then I'd be 4 months sober, binge for a month or two, 6 months sober, then binge. So I spent about 9 years of my life doing that. So now let's just fast forward to my very late 30s, probably even 40 years old. So during this time that I'm doing all this drinking, obviously I'm really struggling with a lot of pains in my body, because my body is just kind of breaking down. So I'm just under the impression that as soon as I finally get sober, my body will get restored back to health and everything will be great. And that'll be the end of that, because I know everything about nutrition, because I've been studying it for the last, at this point, 16, 17 years at this point. Pretty in depth. So I just always figured, obviously you can't drink this way and be healthy. So all my aches and pains, my digestive issues, all these things we'll go over a little bit later in this video. Obviously they were there, and I just chalked it up to, you're drinking, you're killing yourself. And then when I was 41 years old, I had a stint of 9 months sober, I believe it was, which was the longest I'd ever been sober. And I actually, at 41 years old, I only drank one time, and I've been sober ever since that time. So I consider, and that was around 3.5 years ago, that is really when I feel like I had a very accurate metric to measure against as far as like health truly goes, because I wasn't poisoning myself with all the alcohol. And so now, at 43 years old, with the way my life was kind of ending out, I knew I didn't want to be construction anymore. So when I turned 43 is when I entered teacher training. Like 6 months after I turned 43 is when I went into teacher training. But I signed up like January of that year. I went into teacher training in June of 2020. Because I just decided I was going to get out of construction. The industry, it wasn't so much that I didn't like what I was doing anymore, but the construction industry is just, it sucks to be in. It's no fun. Working with your hands is great, but everything else that comes with the construction industry just sucks. And I realized I didn't want any part of it. It was just a phase of my life that, I had outgrown. So now it's at this point that I'm just starting to accept the fact that I'm chronically inflamed all the time is just because I'm being too physical. I'm working construction all day. So I'm getting up at 4 in the morning, I'm training, I'm working construction. Okay, that's where it comes from. My body just isn't recovering. So at this point, I cut down to working construction 4 days a week to give myself 3 days a week to, kind of recover, focus on other things. And I was going through teacher training, so I was doing a lot of studying and all that at this time as well. And then once I got out of teacher training, I got hired pretty quickly. And so I picked up a class on a Friday afternoon. So then I cut my Fridays in half. So now I'm only working construction 3.5 days a week. And still, the inflammation is still there. I'm still feeling lethargic all the time, tired. So at this point now, I have to really start doing some deep searching. I'm not getting any better. What's wrong with me? Am I just getting old? I mean, I don't think I should feel this shitty, but maybe it's just something I need to accept. So, at this time, I'm really starting to almost become depressed with, the symptoms that, I'm dealing with in my body. I mean, hurting all day just sucks. And then when your jobs are physical, especially going and teaching in the studio, and it hurts, it can be a big problem. So I really had to start digging deep on, okay, what am I going to do here? So as I start teaching more and more yoga, picking up more classes, I'm picking up private clients, I'm finally at that point where I'm like, you know what? I don't have to work construction anymore, I don't think. So I went ahead and I quit my job. I started teaching full time. And I finally thought that was going to be the nail in the coffin for my inflammation. I'm like, you know what? Teaching is very physical. However, it's nothing compared to working construction all day. It's a walk in the park. So I have plenty of time. I'm only teaching 7 classes a week and then a couple of private. So when you compare that to working construction all day, it's nothing. Boom, I'm going to be great. Well, fast forward a couple of months, body still hurts. I'm taking 2, 3, 4-hour naps every day. Something just wasn't right. Through all my years of dealing with nutrition, one of the most valuable tools that we have to use is elimination dieting, where if you think a food might be suspect, you just increase that food for about a week. So if it is causing any symptoms, you're going to ramp all that stuff up, and then you remove the food. And it's pretty easy to see what's causing you some problems. So I had done this with many foods over the years. I had done it with meat. I went vegetarian for I only lasted about 6 weeks because I was already pretty generally healthy, and I could definitely feel a decline in my health. And as soon as I added meat, I felt better. So that's my stance on that. Red meat, fatty meats, lean meats, fruit. So elimination dieting is a great tool. However, I still had trouble, other than like grains. That was the only thing I ever really pinpointed that was causing me trouble. And one of the problems I have when it comes to food and like allergies and tolerances is that I am not acutely allergic to anything. However, there's very subtle changes in the body that I experience when things don't agree with me. So it's always very subtle. It's very hard to detect. And this is something I discovered completely by accident when it comes to almonds, because it's a big, anytime you Google anti-inflammatory diet, they're going to be just fucking shoving almonds down your throat, as many as you can eat. Well, as it just so happens, I always ate a lot of almonds, a lot of cashews, Brazil nuts, peanut butter. I always had quite a few, and there was times I did take peanut butter out at one point to see if that was causing my inflammation, because as they say, peanuts will inflame you, almonds are going to cure cancer. Those are the types of things you come across. But anyways, it was about a 2-week period, and I hadn't purposely cut almonds out of my diet for any particular reason. I just specifically remember that I hadn't had almonds in a while, and I'll never forget this. It was a Monday. I had my Monday night class to teach, and I was a little hungry, but I wanted something that would go down pretty quick, so I just decided to have some almond butter and banana before I went in for class. And I specifically remember feeling great that day going into class. I was well rested. I was strong. I just couldn't wait to get to the studio and teach. Class started off great. About halfway through the class, my nose started running, my throat was itchy, and then the stomach cramps kicked in. And the last half of that class was the most difficult class I ever had to teach. I mean, I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. I felt sick as shit, and I made it through the class. I got home, climbed straight into bed. I told my girl, I said, baby, I'm feeling like shit. I'm going to bed. See you in the morning. And so now, after many, many years, I'm just like, son of a bitch. I'm allergic to almonds. Like, that was crazy. I never had that kind of reaction with almonds, but at the same time, I don't recall ever not eating nuts in my diet. I've always been a very big fat eater. And, that's, when you're getting a lot of those healthy fats in your diet, you got to eat a lot of almonds, right? Eat them by the handful is all the information you come across. So that really got me thinking. And now I had played around with a lot of ketogenic diets. And honestly, the only time my inflammation would ever lower substantially was when I would eat a ketogenic diet. However, on a keto diet, I didn't really feel lethargic, but my energy levels just weren't that high. And my workouts really suffered. Like, as far as like day-to-day life, it was manageable because it was nice that the inflammation was lower. However, my energy levels with my workouts just kind of sucked when I was on a regular ketogenic diet. So that's why I never stayed on one long term, and I always ended up adding, carbs like potatoes. And a lot of vegetables. So now that I've pinpointed that I have some sort of nut allergy, I cut out nuts, and the weeks are going by, but there's really no improvement in my health at all. And so this was something I discovered just completely by accident, the nut thing too, and as well as what we're going to talk about right now. I've always been a big vegetable eater. That was just something when I was a kid. I was taught, eat your vegetables. Every article I ever wrote, eat your vegetables, everything about inflammation, eat your vegetables, 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 vegetables. So I always ate a lot of vegetables. Anyways, I was going through a few day period where I had a really hectic schedule. I was running low on my vegetables, and I didn't want to go back to the store for a couple more days. So I thought, you know what? I'm just not going to have any vegetables at lunchtime, and I'm just going to have my vegetables with dinner over the next few days. No big deal. And then I noticed something. On the second day, I noticed how good I felt after lunch. Like, everything went down so smooth. I wasn't bloated. I wasn't gassy. I felt like I didn't need to take a nap after I ate. I felt like my food had processed. Like, right after I ate, I could have gone to work. I don't have to sit and let it settle before I go teach or anything like that. And then I noticed that night as well too, after I had my dinner and my vegetables, I was bloated. I was gassy. I didn't feel my food digesting. And I even remember waking up in the morning and being like, I still feel like I have a brick of food in my belly. So after the third day, I'm out of vegetables, and rather than going back to the store, I thought, you know what? I've tried everything else. Vegetables seems to be the only thing that I've always just really stuck in there with. So I decided to eliminate vegetables and just see what happens. So, I did a little bit of research, and it blew my mind how many stories I came across just like mine, where everybody was doing the right things, eating the right foods, eating their vegetables, all this anti-inflammatory stuff, smoothies, berries, all this and that, and they were still chronically inflamed. They were sick. Some of these people have horrible diseases that's literally killing them, and everything clears up when they get rid of vegetables from their diet. And so, making that leap, I noticed about the third day in that I wake up in the middle of the night to go take a leak, and all of a sudden I roll right out of bed. The stiffness is gone, the joints feel better, and I'm just like, wow, I feel so much better. Just the inflammation alone would have been a great benefit. However, I also noticed that after I ate, I feel fine. Like, even after a big meal, I don't feel bloated. I don't feel like my body is not digesting what I'm eating. Like I can eat and just go. I don't need to take naps during the day. My energy levels are as steady as they've ever been. You know, I wake up in the morning. I go all day until about noon or 2 o'clock. That's when I have my first meal. And then I eat again at night. I never get hunger pains. I never really get that hungry. I'm never starving. Every time I eat a meal, I don't really have to count calories. I just kind of eat until I'm full and then I'm done. I don't have the sugar and the carbs telling me to consume more, consume more. It's just because it sets off those correct hormones. It says you're full, you're done. And as far as teaching goes, these are benefits that, you know, I didn't even think about. When I would teach, I used to get lightheaded sometimes. If I was like demoing on the floor and I would stand up in the hot room, I'd get dizzy. I might have to go lean up against the wall so I didn't fall over. That completely went away. As far as being sharp and on point, a lot of times for the majority of my classes, I had to struggle through those. I don't do that anymore. It's like when the cues are there, the postures are there, like everything just comes out. It's more effortless. And then as far as my demoing goes, like without the inflammation, I can actually give more to my students because I'm not hurting so bad all the time. I'm more flexible, so I can do more demos and even demo some of the fun stuff, the arm balances, the things that certain people do want to learn. So there's just this cascade of benefits that I've reaped, and it all comes from simply eliminating vegetables and eating an animal-based diet. So if this is a story that you can relate to where you feel like you've done everything humanly possible to take control of your health, but nothing seems to be working, you're going to want to stay tuned for my future videos. We're going to be going deep into all the myths and all the facts and everything you've been told. And a lot of things you think you know about nutrition, we're going to turn those upside down. We're going to talk about cholesterol and saturated fat. We're going to talk about fiber. We're going to talk about phytonutrients. We're going to talk about heart disease, all these things. I got these videos coming up. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Zach Sprinkle, and this is Z Static.